research is from Dacher Keltner. So Dacher Keltner is a professor at UC Berkeley, and he's just written a book about this entitled, let me see if I can find it. Awe, the New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Can Transform Your Life. Dr. Keltner tells about, his rich history with awe experiences that started at a young age. I believe his mother was a professor at somewhere in San Francisco. I'm not totally sure where, but he grew up in California. So he and his brother experienced all of these awe-inspiring experiences in nature. They went hiking, they traveled a lot. He grew up in, Laurel Canyon in the 1960s. So he was exposed to lots of music and, the countercultural revolution of the time, which involved a lot of, free-spiritedness and artistic related endeavors. So he talks about that, but then he also talks about his own experience when his brother died and how he experienced awe as a result of his brother's death. And so I want to go ahead and jump in and define it. Awe is the emotion we experience when we encounter vast mysteries that we don't understand. So it's that the goosebumps that raise the hairs on our arms when we watch the Rangers win the World Series, or not me personally, but some people who do the sports ball. When we go to a concert, when we experience a piece of art that's particularly moving, when we get a tear in our eye because we have seen something of such massive moral beauty and sacrifice that it inspires us to do the same and to do more. When we are camping underneath the stars and we feel so small, when we experience the vastness of the universe, when we wake up in the morning on that camping trip and we hear the sounds around us and we feel at peace. These are experiences. The emotional experience of awe can take place in many different formats, and it can really enhance our lives in such an important way. A lot of our theoretical orientations or leanings in the psychological training world talk a lot about getting rid of problems, or how we can make our lives more meaningful, or, how it can be more fulfilling. Awe kind of takes away the pressure from an individualistic striving to succeed or find that meaning or seek out that purpose. And it places emphasis on the everyday, those small experiences that can lead to great rewards that can help us, relax and experience the more joyful elements of life. It makes me think about the movie Soul. I don't know if any of you have seen Soul, but spoiler alert, what I love about it, it's an animated Pixar movie from a few years ago, by the way. So hopefully I'm not spoiling anything too, terribly mysterious. But what I loved about that movie is it teaches us the lesson that the protagonist has this dream of being a musician. And so he spends his entire life striving for that goal and striving for that dream. What I think he ultimately learns is that life is in the process and in the journey and in the little things, and that those little moments of awe, like eating pizza, listening to a beautiful song and enjoying it, having a moment of connection with another person, experiencing the beauty of the leaves falling on a fall day, those can be just as impactful and meaningful in our lives as the big things, the successes, the strivings, etc. So I think it's worthwhile research, and I think it's really interesting, and something that we can incorporate into our practices. So awe is the emotion we experience when we encounter vast mysteries that we don't understand. Dacher Keltner's research covers, he collected 2,600 stories from 36 cultures, and he boiled down his research to 8 wonders. And these 8 different experiences of awe that ranked at the top were awe-filled experiences in nature, the spiritual, in music, in visual design, in big ideas, in life and death, in collective effervescence, or these moments where many people are gathered together and engaged in a shared activity, such as like a concert, a game, even a protest or a religious event, and festivals and parades, and moral beauty. So we'll talk about each one of those a little bit, but he describes the benefit of these experiences of awe as something that takes us away from this excessive introspection that we tend to do in the modern world, and towards something outside of or greater than ourselves. So, he talks a little bit about narcissism and how obviously people who experience narcissism are thinking about themselves. But he also talks about how many of us who experience anxiety and depression are typically over introspective. When we're thinking all the time about what might be going wrong in our life, what might be going right, what we're achieving or not achieving, those things can really impact us. And these experiences of awe sort of take us out of that cognitive space where we're over analyzing and ruminating, and helps us focus on the larger picture. So that's the huge benefit of these experiences. He says that, we're at a cultural moment of narcissism and self-shame and criticism and entitlement, and awe gets us out of that. It does this by helping us get out of our own heads and realize our place in the larger context of our communities. It reduces stress, quiets our inner critic, and inspires altruism. So awe was something that I actually found in my qualitative research about nature therapy. So I find it to be very interesting that there was some overlap in his research and my research as well. So spirituality and awe were 2 themes that came up in my research about nature therapy and experiencing and spending time out in nature. So that is something that obviously I advocate for and work with clients, but it could be as simple as taking a walk outside, enjoying the day, or it could be as extensive as a hike or a travel experience. But none of these are too difficult to access. I think he says that people noted that they experience awe 3 to 5 times a week. That could probably be even more with intention. Music. Music is a big one. I don't know about you, but I have been to concerts before where I have wept, or I've just felt so inspired. I've felt that awe. I've just had such an amazing time. And I think that is really powerful. So that's something that we can incorporate into our work with clients as well, particularly teens. I love that, but also just as a form of self-care for ourselves. I've talked with my students about how sometimes it's hard to fit in self-care, but one way that we can do that is music, because we can listen to it while we're driving in our cars, while we're taking a walk. But that's a powerful one. And then there's the spiritual. So Dacher Keltner describes his brother's death. He died of cancer and ultimately decided to take his life through a lethal cocktail as he was terminal and knew that he had very limited time. Dacher describes that experience as when he was told the news and he went to go see his brother. His brother had a smile on his face, and Dacher got this sense that there was something sacred happening here, that there was peace, that there was maybe something more, maybe there was an ushering into the next realm. And it was actually a very special experience for him. And I think life and death brings about these experiences frequently for people. I am sure many of you have experiences with death or birth as feeling sacred, based on your belief systems, or maybe even just experiences that you've had. But awe is very present in these moments, when people are ushered into the world and out of the world. And obviously, you don't have to experience life or death to experience a spiritual experience. So those are two different categories for him, actually. But spirituality can be that overwhelming vision of sensing the divine. It could be a feeling, it could be a contemplation, meditation, prayer. These are avenues in which spiritual occurrences can happen for people. Or it could be as simple as being out in nature and feeling that connectedness. Visual design. So experiencing art, or other aesthetically pleasing things that are intentional, can elicit experiences of awe. Big ideas. So people mentioned that when they nerd out on astrophysics or whatever it is that they really enjoy learning about, there is a sense of awe connected to just that understanding. And one of the things that he talks about with awe is that there is a shift in outlook. So these experiences of awe bring permanent changes to us, whether that is through a musical experience, a spiritual experience, time in nature, but it changes our outlook and opens our minds and stretches us a little bit. So the idea of, big ideas is pretty cool to me. We talked about life and death. That is one of the experiences of awe, and also collective effervescence. So collective effervescence is a group activity. We talked about that a little bit. So we're moving in unison. This could be people at a concert, games, protests, religious events, festivals, parades. I'll tell you, I've felt this definitely at concerts before. One example I can think of is the Eras tour. I did not go to the Eras tour, but I've heard that this is like the prime example of collective effervescence, because all of these people are there for Taylor Swift, and there's this massive community of giving and loving and enjoyment and awe. And so this experience of singing together and dancing together and exchanging, bracelets is part of a collective effervescent experience. And then we have moral beauty. So moral beauty is defined as those, heroic acts of sacrifice that we witness in others. So when someone does something that is exceedingly kind, exceedingly thoughtful, unexpected, there are moments of moral beauty all day, every day. It is a tough world out there, and I think it can be overwhelming. And we're faced with frequently, the news media kind of portrays the onslaught of all of the hard things that are occurring in life. But, if we pay attention, there are also acts of courage, acts of faith, acts of hope and goodness and kindness. And that is what, awe around moral beauty is. And that typically inspires you to engage in more of that. So it's a really beautiful, beautiful way to experience awe. He also talks about how when we experience awe, it activates the vagus nerve and activates the parasympathetic nervous system and deactivates the default mode network, which is that self-focus. So it actually does do something to the brain that actually shifts us away from those feelings of neuroses and self-focus. And the self dissolves and there's openness to the outside world. So I love it. I think that it's just something to think about. what are some ways that we can incorporate awe into our lives? For me, I want that to be through nature always, but especially because the weather's been so beautiful lately. Maybe more of a spiritual practice, getting back on meditation and focusing on that a little bit more. But always, seeking out those experiences that are aesthetically pleasing or morally beautiful, and just taking an active interest and search for that in my life is something I think that could bring me more joy. It's something I think that could benefit my clients if I encourage them. And so I want to encourage you all as well in a stressful time in your programs, but also, as encouragement for your clients as well, to seek out awe experiences and incorporate that beauty into your lives. Hope you have a good day. Bye.